I think so. Check, check, check. Hello? You hear me? You all good? All right.
I'll get her to announce it one more time.
Sure.
Are you leaving me any meatballs upstairs? Any samples?
You'll have to get them because I got Mark in charge of it. Have to talk to Mark now.
I just want to taste something before I get a chance to get it out.
Whatever you want, just get it now. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm not sure if we got anybody from our last demo attending this one, but if we do, I appreciate you coming by. Today, or right now I should say, we're doing chicken shawarma. Anyone know what chicken shawarma is? Yeah? I'm sure you've seen it. It's Middle Eastern, okay? It originates out of Lebanon. Shawarma literally means to turn. So us down here in this region, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, we know donairs. We've all seen donairs, right? Well, those vertical broilers, as it turns, is a vertical. It's not a donair machine. It's actually a broiler. And what it's doing is it's charring the outside of the meat. So it gives it that kind of quality that you would get from the end of a roast. You know, the little burnt bits that are super tasty. That's what you're trying to get. So it's a heavily spiced meat formed into a flatbread with sauce and vegetables and wrapped up. So our standard pizza or our standard street food, as we would call it, in other parts of the world they do, you know, different breads, different meats, different spices, but at the end of the day it's full of flavor, it's delicious, and I'm going to show you a way to recreate that at home without all that special equipment and without all that effort, okay? So this is food that's packed with flavor, all right, easy to make, and again, a lot of kind of, when you get it done, kind of a lot of pride in it because it's a sandwich, yes, but it's something special. Street food around the world, especially in places like the Middle East and Lebanon or Thailand or, you know, I'm sure people know pad thai or Slovakia and Greece. These are all street foods that people love, everyday people eat, and are delicious. But it's kind of difficult to replicate at home, so that's what we're going to do here today, show you a way to replicate it at home and make sure you don't sacrifice any of the flavor and make sure you don't have to work too hard to get the result, okay? So, to start, we need to marinate our chicken. And we can do that very easily. Now, in the recipe books that you guys see, I've got my shawarma mix, spice mix, in there for you to buy. Now, you can go to Bulk Barn, pick up each individual spice. You know, might cost you $3 when you get what you need. Then you can mix it up in a mason jar and store it, and you've got your own shawarma mix. Or you can buy a pre-made shawarma spice mix. Then it's even easier again. So if you want to just buy the pre-made spice mix, which is the most complicated part of this, you can buy it pre-made or you can use the recipe, go to Bulk Barn, kind of get your portions, mix it up, and keep it in a mason jar. So the first thing we're going to do is I use boneless, skinless chicken thighs. And the reason I use thighs is because it's a tastier meat, it doesn't dry out, and it's better. Sometimes that's the simple answer. So all we're going to do is put chicken into a bowl. We're going to take our spice mix, which you've already pre-mixed. You've got a lot of different things in here. There's about 10 different spices, okay? They're all just mixed together. All right, you can put that in a mason jar mixed, or again, you can go buy it pre-mixed. Mix it in with your yogurt. Really simple. You can let this marinate for a half hour. You can let it marinate overnight. Again, if you're kind of going to do like a little street food kind of, you know, night with your friends, this is great. Just put it in the fridge overnight. Takes 2 minutes to do this part. And again, all we want to do here is just kind of coat the chicken. Okay? So it's just yogurt, Greek yogurt. Doesn't have to be strained. Doesn't have to have anything done with it. And just make sure it's kind of evenly distributed, okay? Now you can get boneless, skinless chicken thighs at the grocery store. You can get them at Costco. Very simple. This has skin on it and the bone are in there. We used all the skinless ones. But just for illustration purposes, imagine not having any bone. Mix it up. Wrap it in saran wrap in the fridge. Good to go. Okay? So that's that. Once it's marinated, all right, once it's been sitting there a while, you put it on a baking sheet or into just a pan with edges. A little bit of brain here. And roast it in the oven at 350 for about 40 minutes or until it's cooked. All the juices are going to come out of the meat and stay in the pan, okay? and then the chicken is done. You put that in a bowl and put that in the fridge as well, okay? So the chicken is now marinating or in the oven. It's doing its thing. While that's happening, we want to make the flatbread, okay? So to make flatbread, you think, oh God, I got to make bread. It's going to be complicated. I don't want to be at it. It's just too hard. It's not going to be good. I may have to let it rise. I might have to let it proof. Not in this case. This flatbread is brilliant, okay? It's super easy, and the flavor you get will beat anything you'll buy in a store. Number one, it'll be fresher, and number two, it's going to have a lot more flavor. So what I've got here is self-raising flour, all right? So it's just flour that's already got baking soda and baking powder added to it in the right proportions. Baking is all about making sure your proportions and your percentages of your ingredients are on par. So in this case, when you buy the self-raising flour, it's done for you. You don't even have to worry about it. If you don't have self-rising flour, 2 parts baking powder, 1 part baking soda, add to your flour mix, and you'll have self-rising flour. I like to buy it to keep it simple. So we got 1 ingredient, which is self-rising flour, and we've got yogurt. I know, crazy, right? But I touched that chicken. No, I didn't. Okay, so start with a little bit of yogurt. Now I like to sift my flour when I'm making bread, or just to makes it more aerated. You don't have to. And I just do this. I mean, there's a recipe there to guide you. Can you guys see this up here in the mirror? Am I back too far, or if I'm, oh, thank you. Didn't realize I was on the big screen. So, again, I'm not going to overwork this. I'm not going to beat it up or knead it too heavy. I'm basically just going to mix to combine, okay? And I don't know if you guys can see here, it's starting to come together already. 2 ingredients. So now why I'm doing this, my shawarma is in the fridge marinating. My meat, I mean, in my yogurt and spice mix. And then why that's doing that, I'm whipping up this flatbread. And again, all I'm doing is just kind of going by feel. Whenever you're mixing dry into wet, always start with your wet in this case, and start working in your dry until you get it to the consistency. If you go the other way, and you put a big bunch of flour in, and a dollop of yogurt, then you got to start adding more yogurt. And when you're adding wet to dry, it results in failure. The texture doesn't come out right. It's really clumpy. It's not right. So just be sure that when you're adding it, that you just get a sense and a feel for it while you're mixing up. And start with your yogurt and add your dry into your wet, because you can always just keep adding dry till it comes to the right point. If you flip-flop around, all of a sudden you're adding more moisture after it's already super dry and just not where it needs to be, okay? So I'm going to move this over to here. Actually, no. I'll use the wood for the bread, and so you can see I've got a little ball of dough formed here, and now I'm just going to knead it slightly. I'm just going to kind of try to incorporate in the rest of that flour. And what we've got is we got dough, believe it or not. And I'll tell you, the yogurt brings this kind of sour note to it, which is where you're kind of getting all your flavor from. Really, really delicious. We're going to actually fry these off now and just show you how easy it really is, okay? So try to imagine being at home and you've got your chicken baking in the oven. So it's already marinated, it's in the oven. It's going to take 40 minutes or so to cook through. So during the 40 minutes, which is all, you start whipping up your bread. Now I'm going to remove the gloves just to get a feel, because it's hard to kind of get a sense when you don't have, you got gloves on. But that's feeling pretty good to me now. Now, one thing about this is when you're rolling it out, you're going to use a lot of flour, because you're going to go really thin. And when you go really thin on something, especially bread, you tend to stretch the surface out, so any bit of moisture tends to stick. So when you roll out, you tend to use quite a bit of flour, okay? So again, I'm just going to turn on my burner. And I want the pan to be hot before I put anything in there. And sometimes you can use oil. You don't have to. You can put a bit of Pam in there, all right? Not much. You just kind of want to coat it. And what I like to do is just kind of do that. You're not searing or anything, you're just kind of coating your pan, okay? We get our rolling pin, pinch off a bit of dough. So the thing about this, you don't have to let it rise, you don't have to let it proof, you don't have to do anything with it. Just mix the two ingredients together and roll it out, okay? So as you can see, when I roll it, needs a little more flour. Just kind of pat that in. And again, you know, we're dealing with dough here, so there's a little bit of touch and feel. But as far as bread goes, this is as pretty easy as it's going to get, yeah? So you make yourself a little flatbread, little pita. Again, the texture, yogurt and flour. That's all it is. Amazing, right? So, again, you can go a bit heavy on the flour, because you're going to feel the excess moisture coming out of it as we roll it out. So try to get it nice and big for you guys. All right, and now my pan should be hot. I can feel that. It's definitely hot, all right? I'm just going to lay it in there. Oh, it broke on me. Can we see that? So you want to make sure it's flat. We're just going to let that cook, okay? So you would continue on with that and make 4, make 5. You know how many sandwiches you're going to plan on making. So you can start to see, I don't know if you can see here, you can start to see it turn darker. It's starting to cook, okay? If I raise it up on for you here, you start to see it starting to cook. I'm going to let it stay on that side until I get little brown bubbles kind of popping and it's rising, kind of like what you would expect out of a good quality flatbread, yeah? Now, why my flatbreads are going, or if I got them all rolled out, now it's nice to have some tea towels. So as you're making them, you put them in a tea towel, you know, fold it over, make your next one so they stay moist and they... Now, while we're doing that, I'm going to show you, has anybody here ever made homemade mayonnaise? Has anybody ever done that at home? Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of like, it can really go wrong, all right? It can separate on you. If you don't drizzle in the oil slow enough and let it emulsify, it'll split. And, you know, it's kind of costly, you know? I mean, you're wasting oil, you're wasting eggs, and, you know, who needs that? So what I'm going to show you guys is a simple, easy way to make homemade mayonnaise, all right? All you need is a $12 stick blender, right? $12, $15 at a store. Most of you guys have these in your home anyway. So you guys can see this bread is starting to puff up a little bit, starting to get my brown little you know, burnt spots on there. It's cooking. It's almost done. While I'm doing that, I'm going to make my mayonnaise. 1 egg, whole egg. Don't separate the yolk from the whites, just whole egg, all right? Right in the mason jar like that, okay? Whenever you're using eggs, try not to have salt come directly in contact with your egg, all right? It affects your yolk. So what we're going to do is we're going to use grapeseed oil, which is a very neutral oil. It's not heavy like an olive oil. It's not super light like a canola, but it's very neutral. So you can see the flatbread is done. All right, so then you move on to the next one. Now we've got these for you to eat. We're not going to eat this one, but that'll give you an idea. So you've got a flatbread that's very palatable, actually I'll use this for making a sandwich. So I've got that there, starting on my mayo. So I've got the yolk in there. I'm going to put about 1 cup of oil to 1 egg. So 1 whole egg, 1 cup of oil, okay? So I'm just going to pour that over, because all mayonnaise is oil and eggs, and then obviously your seasoning. So what do we say, about 1 cup now? Anyone good at eyeballing? I figure that's pretty good. So it's about 1 cup of oil to 1 egg, okay? Now we need a little touch of mustard, okay? Mustard is always nice. It brings a little bit of more acidity to your mayonnaise. And again, this is just flavorings. You could make this mayonnaise with just the yolk and the oil. But I like to have some flavor in there, yeah? So we're going to season it with salt. The oil is here now, so the salt's not going to come in contact with the egg. It's going to go into the oil. Want to make sure it's well seasoned. And then, of course, we need some lemon or lime juice. I love lime juice. I think lemon juice for mayonnaise is probably what you'll see more when you look around. But I find that lime juice gives a much better result. So we're just going to kind of squeeze that lime juice into there until we feel it's about enough. Okay. Can't have too much acidity in mayo because, again, you know, you need something to cut through all that richness because it's oil and egg and, all right. Now, this is where the magic happens, okay? Now, the trick here, now in this case too, I've got some roasted garlic. So we took the whole bulb of garlic, chopped off the top, put a little bit of olive oil on it, some salt and pepper, wrapped it up in tin foil, put it in the oven at 375. 45 minutes later, your cloves are nice and mellow, golden. You can squeeze them out and you form this nice little paste. So I'm going to throw a little bit of that in there as well, just for flavor. But again, all you need is the egg and the oil. Now here's the trick, okay? Whenever you put this hand stick in, you want to make sure the yolk is right in this center here. So you want to put the blades directly over the fatty part of the egg, which is all in the yolk, okay? So that's the only real secret or trick to this, okay? So I'm just going to kind of position. Can we all see this? Are we all? Can we see? Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to kind of get that right over the yolk. And then I'm just going to blitz it, okay? So everyone just kind of make sure you watch here because it's kind of fast. And what we got is fresh made mayonnaise. Wasn't that cool or what? All right. So again, all you need to do that is just a very simple stick blender, which is not costly to have in your kitchen and also a very useful tool to have, and a mason jar. And this mayonnaise will thicken up in the fridge as you let it sit, but technically speaking, I don't know if we can get a view on that, right? Instant mayo, okay? So now, in thinking about putting together this sandwich, all right, this Lebanese sandwich at home, we're thinking to ourselves, okay, we've got our bread going, we've got our mayonnaise going, we've got our chicken marinating, and in this case, this is the chicken out of the oven, okay? So can we get a kind of a sense of, you know, that's the boneless chicken thigh, okay? It's fully cooked, just laid in a pan. It's been marinated. So remember, we put yogurt and our spices in there, rubbed it off, laid it into an oven pan, and baked it, and that's what came out, okay? And all that juice there, you want to keep that, okay? That's Flavor Town is what that is. Pure deliciousness. So what we're going to do is we'll chop this meat up, okay? We'll chop this meat up. And when you're cutting meat, okay, any kind of meat, whether it be steak or chicken or anything like that, try to find the grain. All right, now I don't know if the camera can come in here on for me or not, but if I push on this meat, I can see where the grain is running, okay, and it's running in this way towards you guys, all right? So when I cut this meat, I want to go against that grain, all right? And by cutting against that grain, the meat is going to be much, much more tender. It's not going to be tough. It's almost going to melt in your mouth. It makes a huge difference to take the time and cut that against the grain, okay? So I've got that lined up. I know my grain is running this way. And sometimes I like to separate that because the grain might change. Sometimes like if you get that breast, the grain is going this way here and that way there. So I want to find that grain and I want to go against it. So all I'm going to do is chop that meat up. All right, and now what we've got is we've got an imitation of what you would see at the bottom of those vertical broilers or those donair machines that you see all the time. You know, the meat kind of piles up in the bottom, and then they take it and make your sandwiches. So that's what we got, and I'm going to put that back into the juice, let that kind of soak up the juice, not waste any of that flavor. And now what I've got is I'm kind of ready to cook off the chicken. I'm ready to cook off the chicken nice and hot here in the pan and start making my sandwiches, okay? So now we've got our mayo, which is our sauce. We flavored it with a bit of roasted garlic. We've got our chicken, which is marinated, cooked, chopped up. We got our flatbread, all what we made ourselves, okay? And then, of course, in Lebanon, they love pickled turnip, okay? I've got a recipe here for pickled turnip. This is turnip raw, okay? And it's been pickled. Now you ask, why is it pink? You know, I've never seen a pink turnip in all my life. Well, what they do is, you'll see in the recipe, which I've included for you guys, you take a piece of beet, just a slice of beet, raw beet, and throw down into your pickling liquid, and then pour over your pickles, and your pickles will give it that color. It'll give it a little bit of an extra sweetness from the beet juice as well. And in order to pickle those, you basically cut the turnip up, soak it overnight. If you want to do this, you can buy these. If you want to do it yourself, soak it overnight. The next morning, make your pickling liquid, 3 parts vinegar, 1 part water, any kind of flavorings you want. Bring it up to a boil and pour it all over the raw turnip and put it in a bottle, and you've got pickled turnip. So you can make that yourself as well. And then we've got dills. So we got our vegetable, we got our meats, we got our sauce, and we've got our flatbread, okay? So now it's just come time to assemble. So all that's done. Imagine being at home. You've got 4 or 5 of those already done. You've got your mayo made, and all you're doing is now you're going to just... Now you're just going to try to recreate that, you want to try to recreate that crispiness that I was telling you about at the beginning of this, where you get those crunchy little bits and those little packed in flavor of all that spice. Well, in order to bring that out and kind of replicate that vertical broil char on the outside of your meat, we're going to fry this at high heat in a frying pan. And that's going to make it super crispy. It's going to bring out all that spice flavor, and it's going to make that meat absolutely delicious. So, first thing I need is to turn my pan on again, get some heat going through there. Little bit of oil. Probably better to use olive oil in this case, but any oil will do, not particular. We're going to get that nice and hot. And we'll start searing that off. Just give ourselves a little tidiness here with all the... One thing about making bread, doesn't matter what you do or how easy it is, but guaranteed to have flour all over the kitchen. I know I do. All right, so you can see my pan is kind of hot. It's nice and smoking. Now again, you don't want to put meat like this into a cold pan, all right? It just, the small, tiny details in cooking tends to be what gives you that really nice result. So sometimes if you're going to do it, you want to pay attention to the fact that, is my pan hot enough? See, my oil's starting to bubble. Can you guys see that there? I'll check. My oil's starting to bubble. I can see the smoke just starting to rise from it. I know it's hot. I can get a sense. Now that's got all that juice in there as well. So that's, if I put too much in, it's going to kind of steam, right? So I'm just going to kind of try to get some of that excess juice off. Ah, see? You can smell that spice already, and it's just delicious. So now, another trick when it comes to searing is a lot of times, if I'm at friends or I'm watching people cook at home, they'll throw that in and right away start stirring. Right away start mixing it around. Let it sit. Let it char. Let it burn. Let it, no, I shouldn't say burn, but let it get really, really crispy. You got thigh meat in here. This is not going to dry out on you. All right, you're in good shape with thigh meat. With breast meat, you want to handle it with a little bit more care. But when it comes to thigh meat, you got a lot of wiggle room, okay? So again, it's starting to stick already. I want to see it nice and brown. Can we get our samples, get boys to start bringing the samples down? So what we've got done for you guys for sampling this is we've made all little mini sandwiches for everyone, okay? So we'll bring those down from our kitchen upstairs, and we made it just like we made it here. And they'll all be little individual flatbreads with meat and with your vegetables to give you guys a chance to try it. So those will be on their way down now shortly. In the meantime, we'll continue on. So you can see the nice little char bits I got going. See that? Again, I'm trying to replicate that kind of, that really flavorful, tasty kind of char that you would see in a shop or on the side of the street in Beirut, you know? Has anybody here been to Lebanon or been over in the Middle East? Anyone? No? If you do, make sure you go find a little shop that's doing these, because it's something special. It truly is. So can everyone get a sense of how kind of crispy and dark and seared off that meat is now? Really, really nice, yeah? And packed with flavor. So now, next step is you got everything done. Got your flatbread, your mayo, your vegetables, and your meat. Now it's just a matter of assembly. So you've got your flatbread. See how well that holds up? It's not brittle or coarse or anything. It's very malleable. It's very, you know, it's chewy. It's got the brown charred bits. Just right up here, yeah? Yep. Can we get it right here? Hey, look at that. Good. Okay, perfect. Okay, so again, these are the little samples we got done, but if you're at home, you've got your flatbread, all right? Take a little bit of your mayo that we just made in an instant, all right, as you all saw. Let me make sure you guys can see what I'm doing here. A little bit of veg. Now see, there's so much flavor and spice in this, and so much richness in your sauce, you gotta have something acidic for balance. And one thing about the Thais and the Lebanese, they know how to pack flavor into food, and they know how to balance it really well. So this pickled turnip goes beautifully with, to eat that by itself is a bit unpalatable, in my opinion, unless you like pickle. But mixed in with everything, it creates this flavor and this blend and this texture that's just something to remember, truly. So, a little bit of pickle. All right. And then we just take our darkened meat, nice and charred and brown, kind of stack that in there. And then we just wrap it up. You can make these any size you want or anything you want. And then let me tell you, a couple of those, nice little tabbouleh salad or any salad that you want, you've got something that's just out of this world. All right? So, enough talking about it. How about we all come have a taste? Yeah? Let's do it. Come on up. Now, best way to do this.